Shalom everyone and welcome back. This week's Torah portion is the portion of Truma, which talks about the mitzvah of building a temple in the desert, a mishkan in the desert. You should build a mishkan, which is a portable temple, and dwell within that. So the mitzvah of mishkan, when exactly was it given? Now we know the order in the desert was the Jewish people left Egypt. 50 days later, they received the Torah at Mount Sinai. This is the counting of the Omer. 50 days later, they received the Torah at Sinai, and then they built a golden calf, before Moshe came down from Mount Sinai. Well, the question is, when was the Mishkan built, actually? So there's a difference of opinion. According to Rabbi Dov Ber Pinson, in his new book, Awakenings, he points out something quite interesting. He says that there's a question of when the Mishkan was actually built. Was it built right after Sinai, before the golden calf, or was it built after the incident of the golden calf? He points out that the purpose of the Mishkan was to contain the spiritual energy of Mount Sinai. After Sinai, the Jewish people were on a tremendous high. They had an intense longing for godliness, and it needed to be challenged, needed to be brought into something tangible that they could relate to more physically. And that was the Mishkan, where God's divine presence dwelt in the Mishkan. And through prayers and sacrifices, they were able to channel godliness more in a physical way in their lives. But the question is, when exactly did that happen? Did it happen right after Sinai, or did it happen after the golden calf? According to the opinion that says that it was after the golden calf, that means that the Jewish people received the Torah at Sinai, but they had no way yet of channeling that energy into their lives so much. So they built the golden calf, they built an idol. And then they realized that they needed something more positive to channel that energy into, and then they built a Mishkan. So it's the same is true in our lives, Rabbi Pinson points out quite interestingly, that you could have an intense experience, a tremendous experience of something, whether it's music or exercise or poetry or whatever it may be, or prayer, and there's no way that it can go after that someplace that is positive. So sometimes people will, for example, really get into music, and they're very much deeply into music, but it can lead to drug abuse or all kinds of negative behavior as a result. And we see that very often with the people who are musicians, that very often they get into very negative behavior patterns. Or people who are into exercise, and exercise also can cause the dopamine and the adrenaline flowing in a body, and it can make a person do things which are really not appropriate at all. So we need to, whatever we get into that is intense and very deep, we need to channel it into more positive vehicles, more positive ways to do that. And of course the Torah comes along, and the Torah guides us into ways that we can relate to godliness and to these experiences that we have in a more positive way. And that's something that we need to consider whenever we are involved in any other activities that really are intense and really speak to us in a very, very deep way. They can either be channeled positively or negatively. So that's something that we should recognize. That's why we pray 3 times a day. We put on tefillin in the morning. We learn Torah. And this causes us, it helps us to channel all of our intense energy, whatever it may be, into more positive ways. So I want to wish you all a good Shabbos, and may this week be a good week for everybody. Candle lighting in San Diego is at 5:17, and I want to wish you all a very good Shabbos. Shalom.